This is the intersection at issue. Many children from Apollo Elementary School cross this intersection to one of the several apartment complexes on the south side of 16th Street. In January, a little girl crossing the street ran in front of a car and was hit and injured. Many parents, as well as Apollo school officials, are worried about the situation and would like Oklahoma City to put in a pedestrian-controlled stoplight. But Dennis Kirk of City Transportation said his traffic survey shows enough gaps in the traffic to allow children to cross the street.
That our children need to be educated.
Tuesday night, parents at the Apollo PTA heard from a panel composed of 2 Bethany City councilmen and Dennis Kirk and an assistant from the Oklahoma City Transportation Division. Bethany Councilman Sheldon James told parents his city is prepared to do its part by paying 1/4 of the cost for a pedestrian-controlled stoplight for the intersection, something they could use year-round since children play in a park near the school in the summertime.
You know, the city of Oklahoma City, I have no idea what their budget is, but I'm sure that $35,000 or $40,000 is not going to upset their budget a great amount. They spend that on one day's time on things that, to me, aren't near that important. And we do too. We in Bethany do the same thing.
Dennis Kirk of Oklahoma City's Transportation Department opposes a traffic light at 16th and Peniel. He said he would recommend a light not be installed when the City Traffic Commission meets to discuss the issue next Monday. Well, that disturbed the parents, especially after Kirk said he would not want his children crossing at the intersection.
Do you know Apollo's policy on kindergarten children? They tell their parents flatly, don't allow your child to walk home if you can avoid it. They don't, and particularly on the going south on 16.
One of those attending suggested the parents solve their own problem by using volunteers to watch the children cross the intersection. In Your Corner previously talked to one parent who tried that.
Well, I've took a ping pong paddle out here earlier in the year and made a stop sign out of it, and the cars wouldn't stop for me. And I'm a lot bigger than a kid, and I was pretty hit 3 times.
Do you have any comments from motorists trying to get through here when you did that?
Yeah, a lot of dirty ones, but, well.
What did they do to you?
Well, they hollered obscene things and told me to get my rear out of the road.
Parents at the meeting argued that children of the elementary school age are not able to supervise themselves in crossing, and there's risk of another accident at the intersection. Kirk argued that there are more dangerous school crossings in the city than 16th and Peniel. He said if they put up a traffic light there, the city might have to put up the lights at other schools. However, the PTA is sending representatives to a meeting of the City Traffic Commission next Monday to fight for a pedestrian-controlled light. A group of parents and school officials have been fighting for a pedestrian-controlled traffic light at Northwest 16th and Peniel, where many Apollo Elementary School children cross the street to their apartments and homes. The intersection is where Bethany and Oklahoma City borderline. Bethany City Council voted to pay their share of a traffic light, but Dennis Kirk of the Oklahoma City Transportation Department said nothing was needed, that he might recommend a pedestrian walkway along Northwest 16th. Parents felt the issue was trying to cross the street, since the school zone was a short one and had no flashing lights. Well, the debate went to the City Traffic Commission today, where spokesperson Ruth Dillard explained one child was hit there. She presented letters and a petition from parents asking for help.
With the number of children who cross that intersection, not only for school, but for other activities north of 16th, we felt that the traffic light with a demand control signal would give us more safety for those children the year round. Now, we're primarily interested in the safety of the children who are having to walk across there, but this type of a light would make the vehicle safety factor much greater too. It is a problem to get out on 16th many times when you're sitting there on Peniel.
Steve Hoffner of the City Transportation Department cited statistics that showed there were more than enough gaps between cars to allow the children to cross safely, and that most cars slowed down through the zone. That was disputed by Bethany City Councilman Ron Mead, who has a business in the area.
Yeah, I know that gets used as a raceway and a few other areas down through there because it is an open road from MacArthur to Rockwell. There's no no stop signs or no speed slowing except for that school area.
Meade said Bethany was ready to pay its share of a traffic light if Oklahoma City would. Traffic Commissioner Ms. Push Howard said the pedestrian-controlled traffic lights are not perfect, that one child was killed when such a light did not function.
But our point is that we so recently were faced with this same problem of a child being killed because he did rely on a traffic device.
Well, we're faced with the fact that a child got hit that couldn't rely on any traffic device.
Well, we're trying to give another solution as a school crossing guard, a person that is old enough to have good judgment and watch for traffic in 3 directions and be able to read traffic signs.
Traffic Commission Chairman Mark Schwartz added that children, as well as motorists, might not obey a traffic light. The children can be controlled by adult supervisors, but not by a light. The commission then denied the request for the traffic light, but did recommend a crossing guard for the intersection, with the cost to be shared by Oklahoma City and Bethany. A city patrolman is to be sent out to help slow traffic there. And Commissioner Howard asked the Transportation Department to look into enlarging the length of the zone, as well as improving the warning signs for motorists. You may recall the complaint of Darlene Stevens, who said she contracted to have a lawn sprinkler system put in her yard last November. Even though she had paid $1,200 down, Mike Harkins of Lawn Master had not finished the job and started another one where we found him.
I can get back over there and finish it later this week, have it all finished up by sometime next week.
Despite Harkins' word, he did not show up yesterday or today to finish up the job. And in the case of Mrs. Ora Kapanos of Norman, she has not heard back from Alan Dorn of Code 3 Home Alarm Systems. Dorn originally put an alarm system in Mrs. Kapanos' home, then her alarm contract was sold to another company. Later, Dorn came back, said she could eliminate her monthly payments by purchasing a new control box from him for $485, which she did. She later found she could not break her other contract and was stuck with monthly payments and a $400 control box she could not use. Alan Dorn told me he would help her.
I'll either refund her money or help her get out of the contract, and I'll give her the option of whichever she wants to do.
Okay. However, despite Dorn's word, he has not bought back that control box that Mrs. Kapanos could not use. In Your Corner will stay on these cases. The Wetsteins have had their swimming pool for 4 years now, and Ruth says each year the pool loses water. During swimming season, she says they have to add water to the pool daily, while her 2 neighbors with pools do not. So she says they figured they had a leak, but the real proof is when they winterized the pool in the fall. I noticed looking at your neighbors' pools, they're all filled fairly close to the top. Was yours that way when you winterized it?
It was to the tile level before we winterized it. Then when we winterized it, we dropped it just below the blue tile to keep that from cracking. But yes, it was high. It had not lost, any water.
Because now it's about 2.5 to 3 feet below the tile level, so you've lost all that since December.
We winterized it about the first or second week in October, and it takes to about the middle of December to this level, and then it doesn't seem to lose any more.
And your neighbors are still...
They're at the tile level.
The Wetsteins paid over $11,000 for the pool originally, but Ruth says because of the loss of water, they have to add chemicals more often, in addition to more water, so that increases the expense. Ruth says Fiesta Pools had been out a couple of times to patch, but the leaking continued each year. She was under the impression Fiesta couldn't or wouldn't fix the leak. The head man at Fiesta Pools, C.D. Garlick, was under a different impression.
Went out and corrected the problem on the 26th of April, 1979, and they were not billed. I went out myself.
Oh, I see.
And I talked to Art Whitstein, and he thanked me very much for coming out and taking care of it, said he'd be a strong booster for us. We thought we had a problem taking care of it. We never did hear from those people in 1980. There's nothing here on this ledger sheet that reflects that they even made a call in here. Now, April 24th of 1981, they called and asked us to clean out their pool and check the turbo heads, which you have a ticket there that reflects that, and they paid the bill the next month. So if they were so unhappy, why did they pay it? We haven't heard that they have a problem for the past 3 years.
Garlick says perhaps it was a communication problem because he was under the impression the leak was repaired, and his file on the wet stein showed no further problems. However, he says all they have to do is call, and he feels certain the leak can be found and repaired. He says Fiesta has over 1,000 pools in the metro area, and that leaks do occur from time to time but can always be fixed. Beverly Turner called In Your Corner asking for help to get rid of some squirrels. Well, we didn't see any squirrels when we arrived at the Turner's house. Beverly says that's because the squirrels are living in her attic. They've been getting in through small openings under the eaves of the roof. Beverly and her husband can hear them scurrying around up there every day. But how do you get them out?
Well, they've been in there all winter long, and first of all, I called exterminators, and no one would come. They said that a lot of people had been bitten by rabid squirrels, and a lot of them said they just didn't do that kind of work. Then I called the Department of Agriculture, and they finally, after several divisions I went through, they told me to use moth flakes to chase them out, and that didn't work at all. And I called the fire department, and they said it was a fire hazard, but they didn't offer any solutions. So we're just we've boarded up the holes that we found, and they chewed their way out of that. So we're just at our end. We don't know what to do next.
And they're still in there? Yes,
they're still in there, and they sound, we can hear them every morning. They sound real loud, like herd of horses, and I don't know, we just don't know how to get them out.
Beverly said the fire department told her squirrels would gnaw through electrical wires, which could cause a fire hazard in her home. She said they were also matting down the attic insulation. Now they were going to have to add more. Beverly says they've tried everything to get them out before they destroy her home.
Well, we've thought of poison, but we hate to use that. We hate for them to die up there, or we hate for them to maybe carry some out. We have a dog and small children, and we'd hate for them to have that in the yard. So other than we've tried to chase them, but the area up there is so big that they just kind of seem to hide in there.
I mean, you got up in there and chased them around?
Well, my husband has, yeah. And nothing's working.
Yeah. Well, In Your Corner researchers got busy and discovered that Oklahoma has a state office called Animal Damage Control. Assistant Supervisor John Meyer says they are not in competition with private exterminators, but squirrel control is one of the duties they perform.
Well, when we get a request from somebody, we try to find out how the squirrel is getting access to the building. Is there a mechanical or a habitat way that we can remove the problem? Trimming the limbs to where they can't jump from that, metal shields on the lines going into the house. If that's not feasible, then live trapping them is the safe way, the acceptable way to remove the problem.
John says the furry little animals are cute, but they are destructive. However, his department doesn't kill them. They bait a trap and move them somewhere else.
It's a growing problem in the Oklahoma City area, in the metropolitan area, because of the squirrel population is increasing. There's not a whole lot of natural predation against them. And so they got free run.
John says they've been relocating the squirrels in the Lake Hefner and Will Roger Park areas, but he fears the growing squirrel population will soon become a problem for homeowners in those neighborhoods. Well, we put Beverly Turner in touch with the Animal Damage Control Office, and they will soon be out to rid her of her pests. And if you have a similar problem, you can contact Animal Damage Control at 231-4374. That's 231-4374. Billy Joe Peterson had to retire early. He's just 54 years old. He worked 15 years at St. Anthony's Hospital doing the floors. Then he began having health problems.
Well, I found out I had sugar diabetes, and they have a new name for, I'll just say ulcers. That's what they call them now. Ulcers on the bottom of my feet. And had to have a toe taken off in October 1979. May the 9th, 1980, I had to have a leg taken off because the doctor told me if the bone stays white or gray, no leg, I won't have to have a leg taken off, but it stayed red and he had to take it off.
The sugar diabetes was complicated by a heart attack not long after, but Billy Joe has sprung back after his leg amputation and heart attack. He told me he's adapted well to wheelchair confinement and has been able to take care of himself until a wheel broke off his chair.
And of course, like I said, I can hang clothes out and bring them in, feed the dogs sometimes, wash my clothes.
Cook?
Yes, cook. Mother let us do that when we were younger, so I know how to cook real well.
Broken wheelchair or not, Billy Joe has to take care of himself because his wife Lucille has to work to help support them. She works 3 in the afternoon until 11 at night. Lucille says the sugar diabetes came at a bad time. They had just purchased a new car. She has to have it for work, so they are still making payments. But with Billy Joe unable to work, they depend on Social Security disability and her paycheck for support, but they are now behind in paying the bills.
Have you been having any financial problems since this all happened?
Oh, nothing but. When you make real good and 2 people work, we always had a lot of money over after we wrote a check. Now, we write checks and we have to pay a service charge for overwriting and everything. Just really bad.
What about Social Security?
Well, Social Security comes under when I get a certain age, it probably will go up. But I called the administration, and she told me that I drew a small sum because I was under 55. And I won't be 55 for another year or so.
Later, I made some calls to In Your Corner contributors. I talked with a viewer named Frank High who was interested in helping. He said he would donate a used wheelchair to Billy Joe Peterson and that it should be delivered tomorrow. We'll check back to see if it all works out. Alan Moslander kept detailed records on all the transactions over his Craig stereo unit he bought for his car. He purchased it at Service Merchandise in December of 1980. It was installed by a Buick car dealership, but the FM radio quit the following July. Well, the stereo was still on warranty, so he took it back where he bought it, Service Merchandise. They sent him to a Craig service center, and at that time it was Creative Audio in Edmond.
Creative Audio indicated that the set would be fixed under warranty. Took the set in, and that's the last I heard for 3 or 4 months.
What did you do?
I did call back, seemed like a call back in December one time, and the people indicated then that the set was being repaired, and even after this date they had finally told me the set had been turned in to Craig, and we were waiting a response from them. And my very next contact with Creative Audio was on the 19th day of February when we received a call and said we owed $59.78 to pick up a set that was supposed to have been fixed under warranty.
Alan couldn't understand what was going on. He took the unit in for warranty work and was now being charged for it. He contacted Creative Stereo and was told the set was abused, which nullified the warranty. Well, he contacted Service Merchandise. They in turn contacted Craig Stereo headquarters in Los Angeles. Craig officials told Alan when they received the stereo it was broken in shipping, that Creative Audio had not packaged it properly, but Craig would drop the charges of $39.78. However, Jolene Burkhardt of Creative Audio would not drop charges. She wanted Alan to pay $59.78.
I asked him, I said, what's the $59.78? That's what was written down the day we got this back in February, and he says, no, the total bill's $39.78. She just arbitrarily stuck on $20 for handling the service, he says, which isn't normally done under a warranty contract.
I went to Creative Audio in Edmond to find out why Alan was charged. I talked with Jolene and William Burkhart, the owners, and asked if Creative Audio did not package the stereo properly when they sent it back to Craig in Los Angeles. Why should Alan Moslander pay for it?
According to Craig, it was broken in transit because of inadequate cushioning material and improper packaging. This is from Craig.
Yeah, they say that, but was it? You know,
I don't know.
where's the shipping?
I don't either.
Where's
We
the
don't
shipping?
either.
Where's the shipping box? What they're supposed to do, if something is damaged, they're supposed to file on the thing out there.
Yeah.
If it was damaged when it got there. We don't know that it was damaged when it got there. One of the guys in the back in the service department could have dropped the thing and said that.
The Burkhart said they've had a great deal of trouble with Craig's stereo service, and that's why they are no longer a Craig service center.
We hassled and hassled and hassled and finally said, okay, this is enough of this. Ship all the Craigs to Craig. Give Craig a 30-day cancellation notice to cancel our contract because we're spending more time on parts and telling customers why we can't fix our unit than it's worth.
They said if Craig wanted to drop the charges on Alan's stereo, Craig should have reimbursed them the $39.78 they charged him for the repairs, but Craig didn't. I asked them about dropping the $20 they added on to that amount. They said that's what it cost them to ship the stereo out and back to California, plus the long-distance phone calls to Craig to find out where Alan's stereo was and why it was taking so long. I called Craig headquarters and arranged to have them reimburse Creative Stereo for the $39.78, so they said they would only charge Alan $20 for their expenses.
Just like this.
In Your Corner helped Billy Joe Peterson when a wheel broke off his wheelchair. Billy had a leg amputated because of sugar diabetes and was unable to work and keep up with the bills. A Christian family in Edmond donated the funds to buy Billy Joe a used chair. But we found he and his wife a little low on groceries while trying to catch up with hospital bills, a car payment, and utilities. In Your Corner also contacted an IGA grocery store manager. He wished to remain anonymous but wanted to donate some groceries to help the Petersons, which we delivered to Billy Joe. The store contributed 2 bags of groceries, a bag of potatoes, and a bag of apples. Billy used his new wheelchair to put them away. He says now that he has a new wheelchair, he can take care of himself, cooking, doing laundry, and so on, while his wife can work to help pay the bills. Sheila Binkley says they are down to a single-burner electric hot plate for cooking these days at the Christie Manor apartments. That's what the management gave them when the natural gas was shut off at 1 p.m. last Wednesday.
Our oven is gas, our hot water heater is gas, our heat is all gas, and the only thing we have now is this.
And it's been chilly in their apartment in the evenings. The only heat they have now is a little electric heater given them by Sheila's father. That heater goes in 5-year-old Daniel's room because he's just recovering from an ear infection. She gave another heater to a neighbor with a 2-month-old baby. Sheila said she and her neighbors were in the dark over what was going on when the gas went off. At first, the management only said the gas pilots would be shut off for a while for an inspection and that they would come back and relight them.
They never came back to relight them, so I began to wonder, well, are they even going to come back? So I called down there and asked her, and all she would say was that we were going to be without gas for a week to 10 days. She could not talk about it.
She said a neighbor learned from a maintenance man that all the gas lines at the apartment complex had to be replaced. Sheila said no other accommodations were offered. She said a neighbor did hear that compensation for lost services might be made in May, but they were given no assurance of that. Sheila's husband, Ralph, got several neighbors together and hired a lawyer to find out what the tenants' rights were in a case such as this. The attorney's letter to the apartment management referred to the Oklahoma Landlord-Tenant Act on loss of essential services to the tenant. It said the undersigned would seek substitute housing during the gas shutoff and would withhold rent for that period of time. Ralph said they had received no response to the letter. Phoenix Property Management told In Your Corner it was not through negligence that the gas had to be shut off. They said the gas company shut it off because of a leak and that all new lines had to be laid. Well, I confirmed that with the gas company, and the tenants say it's not their fault, so shouldn't they be compensated for the loss of hot water, heat, and cooking facilities? That's where the problem arises. According to the Oklahoma Landlord-Tenant Act, tenants should be compensated or given other living accommodations if necessary services are lost through the neglect of the management. Well, Douglas Stenberg, the attorney for the tenant, says the gas has been turned off here before because of these gas leaks. He says the fact the situation was not remedied earlier could be a sign of neglect. However, the district attorney's office complaints department says a court would have to decide whether or not this was neglect. The Phoenix Property Management Company, which manages these apartments, told me they do not feel it was neglect. But they said after repairs are completed, they will check with the California owners to see if they would at least take a certain amount off the rent to compensate for the loss of gas, which is normally included in the price of the rent. I also checked with Legal Aid, which looks into tenant-landlord problems every day. Opio Torre says neglect has nothing to do with the landlord providing necessary services such as heat and water.
If the facilities are not such that a tenant can live in them, then the tenant can terminate the tenancy and move on and don't have to pay any rent. The problem we have is that where the landlord has responsibility by law to provide necessities like water, heat, electricity, then if they do not provide those things, the tenant rather can provide them themselves and deduct up to $100 a month from the next month's rent, or they can just leave, and that's pretty much the provisions of the Landlord-Tenant Act.